Okay, in this section, we're going to be talking about Lightroom Creative Cloud, Lightroom CC. In this app, we're going to be going over this picture and some of the tools that you can access for free. Now, the ones that have a little star on it, like the one that says selective and healing, you can't access unless you have an account with Adobe. So if you were to upgrade, um, it would be $9.99 a month. And then you have access to Lightroom on your computer and on the phone. If you already have the account, great, you can use those tools. You probably already know how to use them. If you have an account, I've been using Lightroom on the computer. I want to show you how the mobile app looks like and some of the tools you can use. And we're going to go only over the ones that are completely free. So the first one is the crop tool, which you can turn here and rotate. If you ever need to undo something, on the top right, the arrow pointing back will fix anything that you do. It will undo. And then if you press it again, it will redo the last action. So you can have dimensions, aspect ratios. You can straighten, and then it will look for the horizon and straighten the picture. So the cool thing about that is, according to this picture that I took, is not straight. The horizon's a little bit to the side. By clicking straighten, it automatically found the horizon and straightened my picture so that the background is straight, which is pretty cool. Rotate left is rotating left, rotating right. Flip just flips the picture, and flip vertical flips it. Okay, so I'm gonna press OK, and we have this picture here. Now, the next tool says profiles. If you click where it says profiles, it looks like you only have two options, color and monochrome. But to actually access all the profiles, which are basically presets that you can just use so that you can edit the picture quickly to do some creative things, you click where it says favorites, and it drags all these options. Favorites and basics are the same ones. Favorites have the two basic ones, which is monochrome and color, which means nothing has been adjusted. It just changes it to black and white or leaves a color option. But you have a couple other ones like artistic, black and white, modern, and vintage. If I click where it says artistic, I have all these options, right? So I can click artistic 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. I really like number 4, right? I can raise this and the effects of it are raised, or I can lower this and the effects are lowered. At 0, the effect's completely gone. At 100, the effect is completely there. And then at 200, the effect is almost doubled, right? I'm going to press X on the bottom left. If I like an effect, I can click the little star on top. So it says artistic 4. I click on that little star. Profile added to favorites. Now when I go to favorites, there's artistic 4. I'm going to press X. You also have other profiles, black and white, different black and white options. You have modern, and then you have vintage. So if you want to quickly look through some presets, kind of like Instagram, to see if any of them looks good, you can just go here and see if any of them you like. You can save them and so on. The next tool says auto. What auto does is adjust contrast, saturation, all the other stuff so that it makes the picture look the best that it can be with the tools by intelligent design algorithms on this device, on this application, to figure out what will be the best look for this picture. So when I click auto, this is what it thinks the best picture would be, which looks good, but it's not how I would edit it. So I'm going to undo that. So that's how auto works. The next one is called light. When you click on light, you have several options. Exposure, contrast, highlight, shadows, whites, and blacks. I'm going to go over them really quickly. Exposure raises the brightness and contrast of the picture. Raising it up makes the picture brighter. Lowering it makes it darker. Okay. The next one is contrast. Raise the contrast of the picture, which blows out the highlights, makes the sky very white, and the shadows make them very dark. So her being in the shadow is making her face very dark. Okay. And the opposite makes the picture flat. Okay. So we're going to put this back to 0. Highlights finds the bright parts of the picture, which is the sky and some of her skin. And I can make that part brighter or darker. So if I go to the right, the sky is getting brighter. If I go to the left, the sky is getting darker. But not a lot, just like a percentage when they go all the way to the bottom. Okay? If I do shadows, it's the opposite. Anything in the shadow area, which is part of her face and some of the buildings, I can make those brighter or I can make those darker. Darkening all the way, you can see that their face and parts of her arm that were shadow areas became very dark. Now, the interesting thing about Lightroom that Snapseed doesn't have is it has a whites and blacks options. So this makes anything that's white brighter or darker and anything that's black brighter or darker, which is similar to highlights and shadows. So I almost treat it like if it was highlights and shadows. And then sometimes if highlights and shadows are not doing the job I want, I click on whites and blacks to see if that does what I want. So I raise white, and the sky, that is the white area, is becoming brighter or darker. And then black's the same thing. Anything that's black, which is essentially a lot of the times the shadows. So it has a similar effect. And sometimes I mix both of them. Like if I need to raise my highlights all the way and at 100% is not enough, I raise my whites. So I want you to know that highlights and whites are almost the same and shadows and blacks are almost the same. You have curve options, which I recommend not to mess with because it's very complicated and it's going to mess up your picture. So I recommend just using the presets that come with the with Lightroom profile section. So go to the profile section rather than messing with the curves. Now, if we go to color, this is really cool. You have white balance on the top. So under temperature, you can see that the left side is blue, the right side is yellow, means the right side is warm, the left side is cool. So if I slide this to the left, it's going to make the picture cooler, which is adding more blue. If I go to the right, it's going to make it warmer, which is adding more yellow/orange. So you can pick if I want the picture warmer or cooler. For this picture, I think a little bit warmer is better. Somewhere around 5. Anyway, tint. Like we talked about in another section of white balance under Snapseed. Tint gives you green or purple based on the color of the picture that is casted by several lights that cast a hue of color that's different than blue, that's warm and cool. So sometimes light will change the colors of the picture in ways that are not just warm or cool, but also green or purple. A good example of that is when you're taking pictures at a park and the reflection of the light on the grass and the trees are making your subject look a little green. And adding warm or cool on white balance is not fixing that. So the opposite of green is purple. The opposite of purple is green. So if I see a little bit of green, I can add purple. If I see a little bit of purple, I can add green. Okay? So that is to fix white balance. The next two options are vibrance and saturation, which are great tools to add more color to the picture. And my personal recommendation is to just mess with vibrance. Don't mess with saturation if there's people in the picture. If you're taking pictures of things that don't involve people, then saturation does a good job. But on people's skin, saturation does a bad job. So let me raise the saturation, which is going to raise the color. And you're going to see what it does to her skin. It's making her skin very orange and blotchy and ugly, but it's adding a lot of color. And then erasing saturation all the way makes the picture black and white. Now, vibrance does a similar effect, but not as much as saturation. And it does a good job with people's skin while raising the color of the overall image. So when I raise vibrance, you see that the skin wasn't affected as much. It raised the color of the overall picture, and her skin looks very natural and beautiful. So again, this is 100% vibrance, and this is 100% saturation. So I personally recommend vibrance. If I lower vibrance, same thing, black and white. In Lightroom though, when I go vibrance down, it won't turn it completely black and white, but I guess this app is doing it. Now, on the right, it says mix, and then you have this little color wheel. When you click on mix, you have this really cool tool that you don't have on Snapseed or Facetune or anything. You don't have it on the built-in photo editor for iPhone. This is the only app that I found that has this, and it's one of my favorite features on Lightroom. So if there was a color, let's say the buildings in the background that are all blue and the sky, and I click on blue, right? So I have colors: red, orange, yellow, green, light blue, blue, dark purple, and then like pink. If I click on blue, I can change the color of everything that's blue in the picture by changing the hue bar, which is really cool because now her dress turned purple, but the background turned purple. So if there's something that's just a certain color and you want to change the color, you can do it here, which is cool. The other thing I can do is I can raise the saturation of just that color. So I can make the blue more blue, or make it black and white, just the blue parts, which is most of the picture. I can also raise the brightness of just blue. So luminance makes blue brighter or darker. So if I raise this, it made it so bright that it disappeared, the buildings in the background. If I lower this, it becomes so dark that it stands out a lot. So I can lower it a little bit just to make the buildings pop. And it doesn't affect her dress, which is mostly purple, or her skin, or the green part, the trees there. Which is really cool because no app can do that on a per color basis. Now, my recommendation is, let's say you have a person, you want them to stand out. Unless their skin is dark, in most cases, by just messing with orange, you're messing with the skin, which is pretty cool. So I can change the color of the skin, which I would never want to do, but you can. So never mess with hue, really. The main thing you want to mess with is luminance. You could try to raise the saturation. Let's make her skin a little bit more orange, but I would raise vibrance for that. Luminance is pretty cool because now I can make her skin brighter or darker. Most cases, a little bit brighter looks pretty good. So luminance at 0, luminance at 30. You see how the shadow areas, which is in her leg, her arm, and in her face, now became brighter without having to do anything. I don't mess with the shadow section of light. I just go to orange, raise the luminance of orange, and now her skin looks perfectly exposed, which is the beauty of this app. You can just go here, click on color mix, orange, raise the luminance, and now the skin looks great, even if it was in the shadow area. and it doesn't affect the rest of the image. Now, if the image has a lot of orange in it, it will affect the rest of the image, but in most cases, it will only affect the skin. So done. So that's it when it comes to color. The next one, effects, has this feature for dehaze, which is going to make the building stand out and the haze from the sky disappear or appear more. You could mess with it if you feel like there's like a haze there. Clarity does this. It kind of like adds contrast, adds more clarity to the picture, or makes it blurry. But not like sharpening, so we'll get to that in a little bit. And you can add grain, which I don't recommend to do. Detail is the one that you want to mess with. So you can make her skin stand out a little bit more. As sharpening, it looks like she's in focus more. So I always tend to add sharpening. And then to make the skin smooth, I add noise reduction. So let's look at her skin. Noise reduction. I can also mess with detail. So that is the skin a little bit smoother versus this one. So whenever you do noise reduction and you feel like the skin looks a little like you want to make the skin smoother, I just recommend add noise reduction. And then sharpening is going to make the picture sharper, so it looks like it's more in focus. Optics, if you click enable lens correction, it's going to fix distortion if it can detect that you shot this. Like, let's say I shot this with a wide angle lens. So let me see. Let me go back here. Let me pick photo, this one. I shot this with my phone with the wide angle lens. I go to optics. Is detecting the image, enable lens correction, and it fixed it a little bit, but barely any. So it doesn't do that good of a job. It does a great job if you imported a picture from a camera and it was a little bit distorted, rather than the one coming from the iPhone. And then presets has a few more presets, which are pretty good. So that's it when it comes to Lightroom. Thank you guys so much for watching this course. Hopefully it helps you guys out, and it's going to help you guys with editing all your pictures, taking amazing pictures. And check out some of my other courses. See you guys in hopefully another course.